All right, welcome to Chapter 9, Section 3, Comparing Sets of Data. So this is for Integrated Math 1. A couple things you're going to see on your screen here before we get started. The first thing will be a due date. I don't see that on my teacher preview here, but you will see it on your student screen. The second thing is the number of attempts. You always have unlimited attempts on your homework, tests, and quizzes. Number of questions just tells you how many questions are on this particular assignment. Grading policy is always best score, so whichever attempt is the best one is the one you get to keep. Partial credit is enabled. So normally we have more than one question on our assignments. In this case, you're probably going to have to answer the entire question to get credit, although I think it might also give you partial credit within the problem because there's going to be multiple questions. So down here it says, please remember once you start your homework, you must finish it before you can work on anything else. So that means when I click Start, down here in the bottom right corner, you will see a Submit Assignment button on your student screen. It's not on my teacher preview here, but it will be on your student screen. So before you leave this screen, in order to finish your assignment, you have to click that Submit Assignment button. So that means don't close the tab, don't close your computer, click that Submit Assignment button to finish. Otherwise, Alex is going to lock you out of all of your other assignments, and this is also including resources, assuming you want to leave this attempt open. Remember, you have unlimited attempts. There's no reason to leave this attempt open. The other big thing that clicking that button does, that Submit Assignment button, is that it affects the gradebook. So your teacher can actually see what you've been working on. Until you click that button, your account's kind of frozen. So just very good habit, always get into clicking that button when you're ready to leave the screen. On the side here we have Explanation, Example, and Message Center. So Explanation tells you you're going to lose your question attempt because it's going to give you the answer to this question. Example will show you an example of something very similar to what it is we're looking at. So it goes through, the box and whisker plots that we went through in the last section. Just the background, what is a box and whisker plot and what do all these pieces mean? And then, how do we answer the questions? So once you're happy with that explanation, you can close it. You can always open another one if you need to. And you can message your teacher directly from this screen so that it attaches a picture so that we know where to come help you. All right. So let's take a look at this. It says 2 algebra classes with the same number of students took a final exam. So that's important. It's the same number of students. The box and whisker plot isn't shorter because there's less students in Class A than Class B. There is the same number of students in both classes. So remember, the length doesn't have to do with the number of value points. So the list of numbers would have been the same length. We don't know how many students there are, but we can guess there's maybe about 25 students in the class because that's a pretty average algebra class. So the box and whisker plots below, sometimes called box plots, summarize the test scores for each class. Use the box and whisker plots to answer the questions. So I can see Class A and Class B. And what I can see very quickly is that Class A, since everything is much closer, it's a smaller box and whisker plot, the range for the test scores is much smaller. But for Class B, the range is much bigger, so the lower end of the scores is farther away than the higher end of the scores. So in Class A, there could be different reasons for this, just, depending on how students are placed in the class, but maybe for some reason Class A studied more than Class B. Something along those, or, maybe they had study buddies, or, we don't really know why Class A scored better than Class B, but that would actually be something as a teacher I would want to research a little bit and figure out how can I get Class B to do a little bit better like Class A did. So on this one, we just want to go through and answer some questions based on what we see up here. So which class had the highest test score? Well, highest, that's my maximum. So if I come up here and I look at this, so even though Class A didn't have as big a range, it's a smaller range, they're more clustered, the highest score actually came from Class B because it goes farther to the right here. So that would definitely be Class B had the highest test score. Which class had a smaller range of test scores? So I already kind of talked about this, right? It has to do with how closely grouped these boxes and the whiskers are. So Class A definitely has a smaller range. If it said interquartile range, which it does say down here, that's in the boxes. Total range is from whisker to whisker. So just, be careful about that wording. So Class A has a smaller range. Either way, if it was interquartile or whisker to whisker, because the whiskers are definitely longer here, the boxes are definitely bigger on Class B. So overall, Class A is much smaller. As far as being spread out. Which class had a higher median test score? So median's that line that we have in the middle, and it's not always perfectly in the middle, but it's, you know, in the middle-ish of the box. So if we want the higher median, we want to know which one is more to the right again, higher. So that's going to be class A again, because this one's definitely higher at about 72, and this one's over at 68. So that's going to be class A. Which class had test scores with a larger interquartile range? So interquartile range has to do with the boxes. How long are the boxes? So if it had a larger interquartile range, we want to know which box overall is bigger. So class A had a smaller box, class B had a larger box. So their range between the quartiles is larger. So this would be class B on this one. All right. So there's a couple of different types of questions they're going to ask you on this one, but definitely if you are not familiar with the words that I just went over, go back to section 2 and listen to the video of me going over box and whisker plots and all of the different pieces of them so that you understand what the naming is. Or go through an example so that you get the background there on all the different vocabulary. Because there's a lot of vocabulary here that you need to understand in order to answer these questions. All right, that was section 3. So I will see you in, I believe, section 4.